Hi, I'm VEERA Mahajan, reading day 5 of Unreported. The next few pages, page 19 onward. So, says, if you are only physically attracted to someone, be aware of that in your relationship. Enjoy that you have as lovers or friends, but give it time to see if your feelings grow into mutually loving and trusting relationship. Remember, if you can't be yourself without any pretenses, and you always have to try too hard to make him happy, he is not the right person for you. Marriage or any committed relationship should be between two whole and happy people. Please understand that no one ever completes the other and that you cannot expect anyone to fulfill your needs. Many of us forget this, and then these expectations get bigger, complete with demands and disappointments. These disappointments can escalate to irritations, arguments, and ultimately to fights. Unknowingly, you start expecting him to be responsible for your happiness, but you are responsible for your own happiness, plain and simple. During the 1.5 years of my painful divorce, I moved out because I was afraid to be in the same house with my husband. My mother and my children were afraid for me too. Rather than cower, I decided to use the time to analyze what had happened to my life, including my marriage. I wondered when the man I fell in love with, the man who was so good to me in the beginning, had turned into the man who hurt me in so many ways. Since I could not get into his head to figure him out, I took responsibility for my part in all of it. I started a new inner journey to figure out why I let someone hurt me for so long. What made me accept abuse? I started writing my memoir, beginning with my childhood, to help me understand my own psyche. Where and when did I learn to be so submissive, so afraid of standing up to men, even though I did not understand him and his behavior? Through this process of self-analysis, I learned a lot about myself. I uncovered, confronted, and made peace with a lot of things in my past. I felt stronger and surer that by divorcing the man who was hurting me, I was doing the right thing. I understood the part I played in accepting the abuse, the part I played in enabling it, and I knew that I would never let that happen to me again. I filed for divorce with freedom as my ultimate goal. Take up a pen and begin to write your own story. You may be surprised at what you uncover. Since I did not have any experience of living a free and independent life, I decided to interview as many women as I could so that I might learn from their experiences. I started interviewing men who had been through abusive relationships and had come out of the other side to make happy and successful lives for themselves. For that is what I wanted for my boys and myself. Through these interviews, I met men who had the reverse abuse stories. I was able to learn the point of view of male victims as well. I am truly thankful to these wonderful men and women who shared their stories with me. They opened their hearts, shared their experiences, and have allowed me to now to share them with you. Our hope is that our collective experiences will allow you to find light at the end of the tunnel. We hope to show you that living in abuse is unacceptable. There is a beautiful life waiting for you, but you must take the first and the hardest step. You must say no to abuse. Living with abuse. I was always drawn towards women and children's issues, and wanted to help anyone I could. As soon as my own children went to high school and I had more free time, I started volunteering for a local support group for families and children. During one of these training sessions, we, the staff and volunteers, were shown a movie where a couple went to a party and everyone was having fun. After the party, the couple got in their car to go home. The wife was happy, putting lipstick on as she laughed and said something to her spouse. All of a sudden, Smack! Her husband slapped her in the face. She was bleeding and crying. The whole happy scene quickly changed to horror and pain. Tears started running down her cheeks. I was watching my own life on the screen, and I could not believe it. I had lived through similar situations many times. I turned to the counselor sitting next to me and told her that I might be living in that abuse, that life. I could see the concern on her face, and after that meeting was over, she told me that she suspected I had first-hand experience of living in an abusive situation. I showed all the signs when I asked questions during our training. Later, during sessions with the counselor, I was told that mine was a classic case of domestic violence. I had honed the skills of living a double life. One was for the public, and the other was a life of private pain. I had learned how to hide the pain and make everything look happy and normal when not much inside me was happy or normal. I had become a good actress. No one except my children and my doctors knew what I was going through. It is so ironic that I joined a support group to help victims of abuse. I didn't know that I was going to become one of the cases myself. I always knew that I was not happy with the way things were at home. I knew that my husband was an angry and controlling man and that he had hurt me in every possible way. But in spite of all that, I never called it abuse. I was not aware that the way he treated me was abusive and that I could do something about it. I believed that these were the cards I was dealt, the cards that I would be working with for the rest of my life. Unless you're aware that you're living with abuse, unless you're aware that you deserve to have a better life, and until you're aware that there is a way to get out and live your life the way you are meant to, you cannot get out. So knowing and acknowledging that you are living in an abusive situation is the first step to understand that you can have a happy and successful life, and that you don't need to live in fear of anyone. There are so many different kinds of abuse that unless you know what abuse is, no matter how painful it may be, you will not be able to call it what it is. To be able to accept abuse, we give it all kinds of socially and traditionally acceptable names. But no matter what we call it, if it hurts us and makes us feel badly inside, it is abuse. It gives you a typical example. I'll give you a typical example of thinking that abuse comes in only one form. One of the women I interviewed became a dear friend and asked me about my life. I shared my story with her, and she could not believe that I was not forced to have sex every day, whether I wanted to or not. This is because that was her painful truth. She asked me in astonishment, "You didn't have to do that?" But then I was more aware of the signs of abuse, and I was able to offer her the support that she needed. Typical of most victims, she thought her abuse was the only form of abuse that women suffer. So we'll stop here today. I'll read from there on tomorrow. In the meantime, I hope what we read a few pages today brought you some clarity, some more information that you didn't have before, and so you can make some good decisions for yourself. Thank you. See you tomorrow.